Compared to a lot of kids, I feel like I had some uncanny ability to know about the future since I was like yay high. And no longer in contact with my family. There's been harrowing levels of physical, emotional, psychological, sexual abuse. It's just very terrible. Um, but like in a sense, I kind of knew that. Like it's almost as if like as I gained consciousness while I was born, I was very aware that I had some enemies in my corner, like right in my family. And then I was also somehow aware that I had the tendency to have this great darkness and desire to do terrible things. So I have always been told, I thought I created an imaginary friend in the fourth grade just because I was more consciously aware in memory. But I was told by parents that I had been talking to something since I was very four, very, very little at age 4, at around that time. And just kind of saying stuff like, in Hindi, just being like, Shivani's a good girl, right? Shivani shouldn't do bad things. Like, Shivani's meant to do great things. Like, and hearing that from my own mom being like, what? That's so insane. But yeah, that is kind of true. That's the reason I created her. So I went through all these names I wanted to give her, ultimately landed on Conscience. It became very fascinating because, when you have a bunch of racists around you, a lot of bullies, your friends are your ops, unfortunately. Just very unlucky circumstances, right? Like you need something internally that can really support you. And that was me, but not me directly. I just needed to feel like I was in connection with something else. So, I mean, in my psychology throughout my younger years, I think that's what's opened me up to being able to see more things, that plus my epilepsy. Um, but I would, so it started progressing into a thing where like I had this ability where I would be like sobbing, like snot, boogers, ugly stuff crying coming out, right? And then when it was time for her to speak, her being me, mind you, I'm aware of the switch the entire time. It's like, it's all coming out, right? And then when it's her speaking, everything immediately stops. It's not acting, it actually feels like taking on a completely different persona. Um, and so she became my compass. Like, I feel like if there's your highest self, which I sometimes call Atman Shivani, and then there's me, she's like the bridge in between, kind of like guiding each time. And I think that's what's helped with my inner guru with Shiva, like direct gnosis. So life has always been bad. Around age 16, it really kicked up. My dad, for whatever reason, well, I know the reason. He installed cameras all throughout the house, like hidden cameras, and it was really disgusting, honestly. And my conscience, my bestie, was someone I would always talk to about things all the time. That was my safe space in my mind in a world where no one was my friend and everyone was attacking me either physically, emotionally, or sexually. And so I'm talking to Conscience one day, and then I hear my father repeat some of the same lines that she said back to me. And that was the time where like the abuse in the home had like really like shot up times 1,000, like really dark, creepy, crazy stuff. And so I was already scared to go home. I never really liked home, but I was always very, very terrified to go home. Like that's when I started like being able to perceive like, oh, it's a beautiful sunny day, bright skies, but I feel like a storm inside. Like then like because it messes with your brain. Like when horrible things happen to you starting at a very young age, like my sexual abuse started like at age 3 and went until age 9. So it messes you up, man. It really messes you up. And then like your way to deal with it is to tap into divinity, and you don't even know that you're doing that, but that's, your natural instinct. So that opens your brain up in another way. All this crazy stuff's going on. I'm in shock, obviously, that someone is infiltrating between, like, no one knew about this. I'm thinking, wow, this is a terrible life to live. My one thing as a child that protected me in my very bad environment is now removed because she's being spied on. So then that night, look at how smart the brain is. That night, I have a dream. And mind you, like I said, I'm always aware of this switch, right? I know when I'm her, I know when I'm me, but somehow I can really get into character and switch up. This time she showed up in my dream, and she was talking to me, but I wasn't her. She was her own separate entity. She took on her own form. And she showed up with like a really bright light around her, like a glow, and we're in the ether, we're in the cosmos, so it's kind of black everywhere else with a few stars twinkling. And she's kind of got, I don't know if anyone's ever watched Naruto, but like the third Hokage, Naruto's dad, you know, where he has like the, it's like a white cape, but there's like some red in the background, so that's what she had on, looking super cool. Just me, but like hotter. So she was like, you know, saying hello, Shivani, and I was like, Conscience, is that you? Because you're you, but not me, you. You're your own you. And she was like laughing, like, yes, it's me. She's like, I know you must be very scared that I was removed from you. And she's like, I just want you to know it's been an honor and a privilege to know you in your own body and to watch you grow. And another thing, now that you've created me, I will never leave. At the time, I was watching the anime Bleach. There was some place Ichigo would go into with like, it was very drab looking. It was like black and white and blue, like this, I don't know, maybe you guys know what I'm talking about, but like he would disappear into that world in his mind or something. So that's the world I disappeared into while she was narrating what was going on. She's like, I just want you to know that no matter what happens, nothing bad will ever get to you. And at the very last moment, I will be the one to save you. And so, in the moment, as she's like stepping through these words, I'm stepping through these buildings behind me that are like exploding and falling. So, and while she's narrating, like, no matter what goes on, nothing bad will actually happen to you. And, you know, dreams, there's words, but then there's also a sensation, almost like to say, this is a chosen experience of suffering that like it's meant to experience for me to observe, watch, and learn. But ultimately, like, I am not going to fall. I will never fail or fall ever. And that if it really comes down to it at the last second, she's going to take over and come save me. But she's like, I'm always here with you. Like, I'm very much real and I'm very much alive inside of you because you made me real. And I'm always within you. And then I woke up from that dream feeling awesome because like the final scene was just me like evading all these explosions and and every word she was saying, that's how I was stepping. It was very musical. It was on rhythm, on beat. And I woke up the next day still in absolute fear of like life in general, but I still had my sense of power inside of my heart that no one could take something like that away from me. And it, you know, I'm not trying to romanticize suffering at all. All I'm trying to say is we never really know how powerful we are until something has to test that thing. I had no idea. All this time I'd be like talking back and forth to this thing, and she's like telling me raw advice that started over time. It starts sounding like there's a God speaking through her, and it's all me the entire time. But you know, I liken it to when you go to a dealership and you want to buy a car. Sorry, I'm like very sick. You want to go buy a car and you want to test drive it because you want to know like how great it's going to be for you, how well it's going to handle situations for you. Well, same thing here when it comes to certain abilities a human being can have. You never really know how powerful it is until until it needs to be powerful. And my faith in this thing, faith is what, honestly, when you think about it, like, people think about consistency with like habits, bro, like the gym and eating well and all that. But there's also the consistency and maintaining a stabilized consciousness of a particular frequency, right? And of course, we'll oscillate, you know, and all that stuff. And the goal is to transmute the darkness and come back and integrate all the things. But like, that's, you know, the goal. So, I mean, that's a really fancy way of saying what? It's faith. Keeping the faith alive and keeping that consciousness there. And I guess me interacting with conscience all these years of my life, maybe since age 4, was this faith that got materialized for me that said, like, I'm never leaving you behind. And a lot of times people think of like spirits and deities and they think of God and this ultimate thing. But to me, this was the most empowering interaction because at the end, it's all one. But it was really nice to see that it was me who had my own back.